Paul, how are you? Hello to you, hello to your viewers and listeners. My name is Maurice Marshan. I'm a solicitor practicing in 5 Dock in Sydney, generally and largely amongst an Italian clientele. And you want to know about a certain court case which has received a lot of publicity, in which I was directly involved. My client was an elderly pensioner. One day, out of the blue, in the mail, he receives a fine, and it alleges that he was speeding in a school zone, doing 50 kilometres per hour in a 40 zone. At about 9:16 in the morning, he was very surprised. It was Ashfield, it was on the Hume Highway, and he came to see me and he said, "Avvocato, what should I do about this? I'm pretty confident that I wasn't speeding, and I don't want to lose my licence, and I don't want to pay a fine because $300 for a pensioner is a lot of money." So because he'd been a long-standing client, I told him I would look into the matter. And I said, "Look, have you got any evidence? Do you remember where you were on that morning that you suggest you weren't speeding?" And he said, "Avvocato, I'm pretty confident that I was at a service station filling up my car with petrol. I have the dockets from the service station, and because I paid with my credit card, the dockets show that I entered the service station at 9:15 in the morning, that I paid at 9:23 in the morning, and I still remember distinctly that I then checked my water and put air in my tyres." Now the camera I know very well, the school camera, it was about 200 metres further west from the service station on the Hume Highway at Ashfield. So I don't think that it could have been me, because the speeding ticket says that I was clocked 200 metres away at 9:16 in the morning. Now, how's it that possible? So I said, "Well, look, there are a lot of difficulties, but I'll investigate and I'll see what we can do." Anyway, eventually, I thought that we may have had a technical defence, and I told him to rely on me, that we would go to court and we would argue this technical defence. Your viewers and listeners have to understand, Paolo, that the law is very much in favour of the Roads and Traffic Authority, which is now the Roads and Maritime Services Authority. What it does is it seeks to simplify the evidence that has to be given to a court from a speed camera, so that all the information shown on a speed camera is automatically evidence in favour of the RTA and against the driver. And you cannot challenge that evidence except, according to the law, by expert evidence. That is, that you have to get an expert in electronics to show that there was something wrong with that particular camera. Now, these fellows are very expensive. You cannot hire them for under $500 an hour, and to do a report will cost easily a couple of $1,000s. And then they may say, "Yes, we agree," or "No, we don't agree." Now, my poor client was a pensioner. What was I going to do for him? But what I found was a loophole in the law, because what it said is that the photograph can be tendered as evidence in cases dealing with the measurement of speed. But my client's issue was not that he was not doing 40 or 50 or whatever. My issue was, and his issue was, the time. That at 9:16, when he was supposed to be speeding 200 metres further west of the service station, he was still filling up his car with petrol. So we have one computer giving us a fixed time, and a different computer saying he was 200 metres further west speeding. Which computer is right? So we went to court. I put him in the witness box. The magistrate accepted his evidence completely, that he was an honest man, a true man. We tendered the dockets from the service station, and the magistrate said to the lawyer for the RTA, "Well, Mr. Smith, What do you say about this? No, because the regulations say that this is that and you have to have an expert, and he's not an expert. Therefore, you cannot receive this evidence. And the magistrate said, yes, but Mr. Marshan is arguing that that evidence has to be rebutted by an expert only in relation to speed. But where does it say in the law that it's in relation to time? And unless you have some way that you can challenge the dockets which show that he was in a service station when he was supposedly 200 metres further west speeding, I'm going to throw the case out. And the lawyer for the RTA said, well, I have nothing to show except that I'm saying you are wrong. You, Madam Magistrate, are wrong. She said, well, so be it. But I'm going to find in favour of the defendant, fine dismissed, case dismissed, you're free, and my client was innocent. Very happy day for him. Anyway, within 3 months, we get an appeal from the RTA. They want to go to the Supreme Court to test my questioning of the law, which is section 73A, in fact, if anybody's interested, about whether or not the words, the measurement of speed, applies to everything that is on that photograph, which you can get. You pay a few dollars to the RTA and they will send you the photograph, and everything that's on that, according to section 73A, can only be challenged by an expert. Anyway, we went to the Supreme Court on the appeal, QC on one side, QC on the other for my client. My poor client is terrified because it's costing an enormous amount of money if he should lose. And what do you know? We won. It was just like he had entered heaven.
Yes, of course.
But what's happened now is the RTA has decided to appeal even further. So we are now going to go to the Court of Appeal, which is the highest court in New South Wales. 3 judges, not 1, 3 judges. And we are now preparing all the legal arguments for these 3 judges to finally determine.
It's the last one, definitely.
Well, it can go to the High Court in Canberra,
Oh.
7 judges. But I would hope and believe that if the RTA loses in the Court of Appeal, that should be the end of it. Of course, it may mean that they will try to change the law to suit themselves even further, which is what they thought they'd done, because that question of bringing an expert witness came about because an earlier lawyer acting for another client had shown that the law was wrong, and so the RTA got the minister to change the law to tighten it up. And I found a big hole through that tightening up. And so where we're at the moment is that the law under section 73 about an expert, if it other than for speed, is up for challenge. And that's really one of the main benefits of having a client who is prepared to stand by his rights, that he's innocent, to have it challenged, and to have a lawyer who has the intellect and the willingness to stand up for the rights of the citizen, even for free. And so I'm very proud that this is what I was able to do for him.
In italiano si chiede perché il termine in italiano, in Italian is accanimento, perché la RTA si accanisce contro questo pensionato.
Perché loro dicono, because they say, scusa, they say that there are many cases just such as these, and that if they let it go, many people will be able to defend these sorts of photographic camera speeding cases, and it's going to cost the government a lot of money in fines. And so as a matter of principle, they are testing it. Now, between you and me, I think that that is just untrue. I cannot believe, and I'm not aware of any other case in which a speed camera photograph has been challenged in the last 5 years other than our case. Yet this is what the RTA is now arguing, that it is a matter of grave principle And this is what they're going to tell the judges of the Court of Appeal, that if they let this thing through, then it's going to open the floodgates of challenges which Parliament had tried to close by stating that you could only challenge through the evidence of an expert witness. So that's why they are attacking this decision.
Quindi dobbiamo aspettare per la fine ancora, tra quanto tempo ci sarà questo altro
We are
livello?
in court on the 12th of June and a date will be fixed for the hearing of the appeal. The lawyers on both sides are still finalising their legal arguments, which have to be produced in written form for the judges of appeal. Once all that is done, we will have a hearing date, and if you talk to me in a couple of weeks, I'll be able to tell you the hearing date, or my client will let you know.
Perché non si può assistere, i media non possono assistere a questo livello, giusto?
No.
Quindi dopo magari possiamo avere
It will be interesting
after.
if there is a public interest in this, and of course there is, because a lot of people, I mean, the government raises millions and millions of dollars based on the evidence of these photographs taken by speed cameras and also traffic light cameras. So there is a very grave public interest, particularly when people can lose their license. And then they may lose their jobs, they may cost them a lot of money, it affects their families. So there are real public interest matters of grave concern to the public to have the Supreme Court settle these arguments for once and for all. So I'm happy that at least I'm part of that process.
Quello che hai detto è posso pubblicarlo?
Sì, sì,
Mi dà il permesso di pubblicarlo?
Il cliente mi ha dato il permesso, perciò...
Posso, perché può essere d'aiuto a altre persone.
Of course,
Help altre.
of course.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Paul.